the Lion's Pride of Josie Rugby podcast with Clinton Scott.
Evening, everyone. It's Clinton Scott from Lion's Pride of Josie podcast. It's our 5th episode. I'm going to have a look at our season up until now. Our last game against Leinster, and then obviously our upcoming game against Munster at the end of November, before we take on the teams in the Challenge Cup. So guys, obviously we started our season, the best season start so far in this competition, with 4 victories. Our first game obviously was against Ulster. Big victory at Ellis Park in dry conditions, ball in hand, style of rugby that typically suits the Lions. We then backed it up with a massive victory against Edinburgh. Edinburgh had 12 internationals in that side, and we had a very big victory against them. Also, ball in hand, dry conditions. So we left on tour with a lot of confidence and a spring in our step. We obviously got to European conditions, faced Dragons in wet conditions, and we closed out that game 23-19. And the same thing happened when we played against Zebra in Palmer. Very, very close victory. We had to grind out that win in wet conditions, but it just showed that the Lions have grown and they've matured as a unit. In the past, games like the Dragons or even against Zebra, they probably would have lost. But in this game, they showed calmness. Frankie Horn's captaincy has been paramount in our games so far this season. And they've basically showed now that they can spread it wide, but they can also close out games. So obviously after those 4 victories, sitting second on the log, we left for Dublin. And we knew that we were going to have our hands full against a championship side in Leinster. And before the game, we said, it doesn't matter if Leinster play a full side or they leave some of their top players out, you're facing a team that has a lot of depth in their squad. They've been coached by Cullen, they've been coached by Ninaber. We'll have our hands full. And when we got to the stadium that day, you could see when the players ran out, they looked good, the body language was good. And we came up against a Leinster side that we held for long periods in that game. We were 55 minutes into the game and the score was still 10-6 in favour of Leinster. And it was only around about the 60th minute that Leinster then scored another try to take the score out to 17-6. And the Lions were basically trying to play their normal running game, but in wet conditions and against an experienced side like Leinster, it wasn't working. Their in-your-face defence was also pushing us back, and we were losing a lot of ball in contact. Obviously due to wet weather conditions, but more so Leinster's defence that was pushing us back and we were losing ball in contact. There were countless knock-ons in this game where we had a few opportunities that went a-begging. So it was obviously always going to be difficult to try and employ the same game plan that we did against Zebra, against a far more experienced and classy outfit like Leinster. So they were obviously just waiting for our attack each time we launched an attack, and unfortunately we couldn't hold on to the ball. But like I said, right up until the 80th minute in that game, the scoreline was still 17-6, and we were really holding our own in the game. And just a try there could have earned us a losing bonus point, which I think the Lions were targeting before they went on tour. They said they wanted to get 10 points out of these 3 games. They had 8 by the time we faced Leinster, and another 1 or 2 points against Leinster would have been the perfect result for us. But nevertheless, we got 8 points out of the 10 that we were targeting. The tour can definitely be regarded as a success, 2 out of 3 wins. And I think Leinster knows that if they faced us at Ellis Park in dry conditions and we started spreading the ball wide, they would have been in one hell of a fight. So I think the season is looking good. It's looking bright. The big picture for Lions Rugby is looking good. I think the guys would have learned a lot from this game. And they obviously said they want to play against the best so that they can gauge themselves and see how far they've come. And I think it was their own mistakes and decision making in the game that probably cost them more than anything else. But I think they can feel proud of what they did. And if Leinster have to come and face us in Johannesburg, I think it'll be a different ball game. I think the Lions are going to knock over some big teams in this competition going forward, and especially when they come to Ellis Park. So we have now completed the first block of the URC. They have a break now for 4 weeks before they play the next game against Munster. It won't be exactly a break. The guys will obviously be getting back into the thick of things after recovery, and a lot of the injured players that have missed out on this tour will be back, in the reckoning. Like Tapia Mafura will be back soon. He obviously had an injury before we left and he couldn't join the touring squad, so he'll be back soon. And then there's other players as well that are going to be coming into the reckoning, like Sibalala Koma, the flanker, the promising flanker. He'll also be back in the reckoning. Izan Esterhuizen, that has been on the sidelines for a long time, has also recovered and should be up for selection. And you'll probably find that a lot of those players will come into the reckoning for the Challenge Cup. The Lions will move on to the Ospreys when they've played against Munster in the Challenge Cup, and I think the likes of Zander du Plessis, Sibalala Koma, Tapia Mafura, Izan Esterhuizen, and maybe even Lubalala Dubela could come into reckoning for those Challenge Cup games. So the first Challenge Cup game will be against Ospreys in Wales, and then we come back to South Africa where we'll play our last home game of the season against Section Palois at Ellis Park. So the locals have got something to look forward to in that game. But yes, we're coming up against Munster in our next game in the URC, and I'm sure you guys would have seen that the Munster's head coach Roundtree was sacked today. They played well last season, but so far this season they are languishing in the bottom half of the log in 12th position. They've only won 2 out of 6 games. So I think they're also ripe for the taking, and the Lions should definitely target that game for a win. Who knows, even a bonus point victory, and then come back to South Africa with a stretch of home games and games, in the Republic. When the Lions are finished with Munster, when I say finished, let's hope we beat them. When they're finished beating them, we then move on to Wales, where we will play Ospreys, like I said, in the Challenge Cup, and we'll face Section Palois back in South Africa at Ellis Park in our second game. And it'll be nice to see the depth of our squad coming back into the picture here. Another thing as well that's looked very promising this season is obviously Reinhard Jonker has put his hand up. He's come into the number 12 position in the absence of Marius Lowe, that was injured. Marius Lowe was starting off the bench, but we all know what we have in Marius Lowe. But there's so much depth now at the Lions in a lot of positions, so it's great to see somebody like Reinhard Jonker that's put his hand up. The same with Erich Cronje. I'm glad that Henko van Wyck's back in the mix now, but Erich Cronje has also been sublime in all the games that he's played. And it's also great to see that Kate Voliter is back. We know what we've got in him now. He's a very polished number 10. He's a good kicker. He's a good distributor. He can get the back line going. So I just pray that he stays injury-free so that we can see a lot more of him at number 10. And then it's obviously going to be exciting to see what Lubalalo Dobela brings to the team when he joins. And I'm hoping that he gets his run in the Challenge Cup. He's an explosive number 10. Obviously, he's got sevens experience as well. So we can have quite a bit of options there at 10. We already have a lot of options at 9. So yeah, if we look at the season as a whole, what has worked for us, or what hasn't really gone our way, I think there's a lot more positives to take out of the season than negatives. Positives are we are potent on attack. We showed it in the Currie Cup. It's been moved over to the URC. We've got some brilliant attacking lines. Our defense has also been great in most of our games. Jacques Fourie has really been working hard with that. Our set pieces have been good generally, our scrums and our lineouts. We competing at the breakdowns with the likes of Jared Keynes, JC Pretorius, Renzo du Plessis when he comes on. So all those aspects of our game are looking good. They're really, really looking good. I think it's more just a case of we are going to have to master our kicking game or our plan B when it comes to wet weather conditions, especially against more experienced and polished sides like Leinster. So that's something they could look at coming back. You're not going to really have many opportunities to practice in the wet in Joburg. But yeah, they should definitely just look at ways of getting the better of teams in wet weather, and especially with teams that are high up on the log. Other than that, guys, I think we have got a very exciting season to look forward to. Like I said, a lot of depth has been built during the Currie Cup for this URC, and the Challenge Cup is another competition that we should definitely, push hard for. It'll be awesome if we can get a trophy in that competition and win that. And then, naturally we want to end in the top 8 of the URC so that we can qualify for the Champions Cup next season. Our final game of the year is going to come up against the Stormers in Cape Town. They've also had an up and down season. They're playing well below par. There's rumors that Jan Ackerman is being targeted to come and help out. At this stage, it's just rumors, but we'll have to see if this actually materializes and what unfolds there. But yes, the Lions will then face the Stormers in Cape Town in their last URC of 2024, and I just believe they should go into each game with the aim to win and to improve and just get better and better as the season goes along. Just coming back to that last game against Leinster, even though it didn't work out for us, there were a lot of players that put their bodies on the line in defence. The usual suspects, if you want to call them that: Ruben Skuman, JC Pretorius, Frankie Horn, Marius Lowe, Reinhard Jonker, Asenati Ntlavakanya, Mornay van der Berg. All of those guys are putting their body on the line. So it just shows that they are committed, they're playing together as a team, they're playing for each other, and they'll basically go to war for each other, which bodes very well for Lions Rugby. And I don't think it's going to be long for us to be part of knockouts again, and hopefully we're not going to wait too long to add some silverware to the cabinet. Otherwise, guys, have a good week further. Enjoy the box games that are coming up in November, and I'm glad to see that the page is growing weekly. It's a good sign, and we just hope that the crowds also grow when the Lions are playing at home, and that we go to the park and support them in our numbers. I think they deserve it. They are really going out there week in and week out, putting their bodies on the line and playing scintillating rugby. Thanks, guys. Lions for life.
The Lions Pride of Josie Rugby podcast with Clinton Scott.